Hello, everyone. Welcome. I see a bunch of you just hopped on. Welcome to Base Live. I am Liz Prue, VP of Marketing here at Base, and I am joined by Base Customer Success Manager, Mallory Greer. Hey, Mallory.
Hi, Liz. How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
I cannot believe it's only Tuesday. I feel like it's Friday already. Is that weird? Does anyone else feel like that today?
I definitely do.
Oh, man. Oh, I see some of you guys. Yep, we were just on pause waiting for someone to join. We are here. If you still can't hear us, let us know in the comments. But then you wouldn't be able to hear that I said that. So let us know if you still can't hear. So today is Base 101, Get Back to the Basics. We are doing a live demo of Base. We've had so many new users lately. We've had a lot of users that haven't used our newest and latest features yet. So we thought it would be a good time to just show you some of the best ways that you can use Base and get started using Base today. There are some core features that you can start using and immediately see some productivity back into your week. You don't have to even use our full suite of tools. Of course, we encourage you to do so. But Mallory is going to walk through all of that. A couple of housekeeping items. If this is your first Base Live, welcome. We like to keep these really casual, really conversational, and we like to leave the chat open for questions. This is your time to ask any and all questions about whatever we're talking about. But today, of course, it's about our product Base. If you're new to Base, it's the first ever platform built for executive assistants. If you haven't signed up yet, go ahead and do that now at, I will put the link here, app.basehq.com. We do have a free version, and it just takes a second to sign up. But that way you can follow along while Mallory is walking through the product, ask any questions, and we'll go from there. But Mallory, I will go ahead and let you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then maybe we can just walk through, for those that are new, what Base is, and then dive into the product.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me today, Liz, and welcome to everybody that is new to Base, or maybe you've seen Base before, but you just haven't really had an opportunity to dive in. We'll start this morning with just an overview of what Base is. So Base is the first ever software platform created for assistants. A lot of times people will ask me but what is it? And what they're really asking me is to put Base in a category. So they want me to say it's a calendar tool or it's a productivity tool. And while there are features of Base that do lend themselves to both calendaring, to productivity, things of that nature, Base's features really span a lot of different categories. In a lot of ways, we're kind of carving out a path for ourselves because we are the first ever platform for assistants. I actually was an assistant, and if you were anything like me, you're probably using a whole bunch of different tools that weren't necessarily created for you. You're able to do your job, but you're having to kind of cobble together tools that were meant for project managers or marketers or whatever the case may be, salespeople. And it's just not super efficient, right? What if there was a tool that was built for you, for your unique workflows, for your unique challenges? Well, I have good news for you. Base is that tool. Base is going to help you be more efficient, more effective, more proactive, and ultimately more valuable. Base is going to help you eliminate tools. It's going to allow you to streamline the communications between you and your executive. It's going to help you remove blockers and really just focus on what's important. For an assistant, there's so much noise around you, and Base is really going to help you laser focus on those things that are the most important. Something else people inevitably ask me is, how do I introduce this to my executive? Is my executive going to like this tool? Do they have to log into a tool and learn a new tool? Because I'm never going to be able to convince my executive to do that. Again, great news. Base is really just meant for you. It was built you could say largely by assistants for assistants. While your executive will see outputs from Base, your executive does not need to learn Base. They don't need a license for Base. They don't need a login or password for Base. They're simply going to benefit from it while you actually get to use this tool. And it might make sense for some of our newbies on the phone to hear kind of some things that we've heard from executives. And ultimately, executives really like Base. They get a chance to see a streamlined view of their day. They're able to easily remove blockers for their assistant. And when we started creating Base, we actually did a lot of user interviews and to really understand, what do executives need? What do assistants need? And we heard a lot of commonalities. We heard that executives want to receive updates. They want to get a preview of their day. They want to be able to remove blockers for their assistant, but they don't want to be pinged throughout the day. We also heard from assistants that they have blockers that need to be removed. They want to be more proactive and serve up more information to help their executive meet their goals and be successful. But again, they don't want to pepper them throughout the day. And I think as our lives in general move from synchronous communication to more asynchronous communication, Base is really nicely positioned to help you do just that. We will run through a demo today of all of the features, but just so we can kind of a level set a little bit here at the beginning, we have a tool that allows you to kind of get a bird's eye view of what you need to do. Base offers a task manager. We offer a product called Dossier, which allows you to store all of your executives' preferences. We have a communication tool called Digest Builder, and then we also have a tool called Decision Stream that is going to allow you to easily ask your executive questions, get an answer in a streamlined way. So that's a little bit about us. That's a little bit about what we are going to do for you. And so if everybody is ready, we will go ahead and see Base in action.
Awesome. Thanks, Mallory. And again, guys, I just saw a bunch of you jump on. If you aren't signed up for Base yet, go ahead and do so. We have a free version. I just put the link right here, app.basehq.com, so you can follow along and ask questions. And drop all your questions in the chat. While Mallory is going to be walking through, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. She'll be taking a look at it as well. But this time is truly meant for you to learn, ask questions. So if we're walking through something, and just drop in the chat if you're like, hold on, let's walk through this again. Now's the time to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I get kind of excited when I talk about this. And so if I get going fast, just say like, Mal, pump your brakes. Like, let's go back and revisit what you just said. It's going to be more fun for me and for you if you guys talk to me. So we will go ahead and get started with the demo. So I'm going to begin the demo as though I'm an assistant. Again, I have actually been an assistant. I've been in your shoes. And so that's where we're going to start the demo, as though I am an assistant. I've come in for the day, and I'm kind of getting a lay of the land. I'm looking through my inbox. I'm probably looking through my executive's inbox. I'm also taking a look at the messaging platform that I use. I happen to use Slack, but we have a Slack integration. We are also in the final stages of our Teams integration. So if you are working in the Microsoft suite, you will soon be able to do just what I'm about to do. Right now, I'm only showing Base, but what I'll do is kind of walk you through what this would look like. So I look over in my messaging platform. I see that my executive has sent me a message. It says, "Good morning. Can you help me start planning our team offsite in August? Just let me know what you need from me." All I have to do is hover over my Slack message. I click on the bookmark icon, and in just a moment, here it is. You see that that message has actually been pushed into Base. I'm going to see that in my notification center. I heard a lovely little ping that suggests that I have a notification. If I walk over to my inbox, I'm actually going to see that message that my executive just sent to me. From here, I can kind of look at the message. I should note this as well. You'll see here that I can send both messages and emails into my Base inbox. If you go into the settings icon, there is this lovely little email alias. I recommend you actually saving that in your contacts for your email so you're able to easily forward emails to that email alias. I also have heard assistants giving that email alias to their executive. And if you are in the business of setting boundaries with your executive, if you are in the business of trying not to communicate after hours, this is a great way to help reinforce that, especially for non-urgent items. A lot of times I hear executives forward emails or whatnot to that email alias so that they're not bothering you in the off hours, but it's there when you log into Base in the morning. So again, you can imagine I've sent a whole bunch of stuff over to my Base inbox, and now I'm ready to get started. All I have to do is click on this particular item and click Move Items. Here you see all of the workspaces that I have access to. These are the exact same workspaces that are up here in the upper left-hand corner of my screen. And each of these workspaces is representative of an executive that I support. So I can choose from this inbox where I want the item to go and what I want to do with it. In this scenario, it's a task, but it could be a custom note or contact that I'm pushing over to Dossier. It might also be a question. So you can imagine I get a question from maybe somebody on my executive's team. I push it into inbox, and then I convert it to a question that I can then send to my executive via decision stream. So in this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and choose the executive, and I'm going to create the task. Once I create that, or once I handle it, if you will, it is removed from my inbox. What I'll do is actually follow this task or this inbox item through Base so you can see all of our features and kind of how they work together. But you can imagine that I would probably continue going through this list, filing emails away for reference, converting things to tasks, converting things to questions, if that makes sense as well. Before we move on, I'm actually going to mention that inbox is going to be I always say workspace agnostic. It's our only workspace agnostic feature, meaning that inbox is going to be separate from the workspace. If I were to look at tasks, these would be tasks for Zoe. If I click on Wendy's workspace, then if I go into tasks, those are tasks for Wendy. So all of these tasks or all of these features down the left-hand side of the screen are specific to the workspace that I'm actually in, with the exception of inbox, because inbox is really that holding tank where you're then going to parse those items out to the respective workspaces. So I go into tasks. Let's see, where is my task that I just sent over? Oh, it's because I'm not in Zoe's workspace. Here it is. So here is my task that I just sent over. Good morning. Can you help me start planning our team offsite? This is our task manager. You'll notice that it is in beta, which means it is not complete. I'll share a couple of things with you that we plan to add here. But for now, I'm going to go into this particular task. I can update the name if I want to. So let's see, maybe I want to call help. Let's see, we'll just call it team offsite. In the description, it is going to hold on to the full text from the message that I sent over. I can mark this as a high priority item if I would like. I can also give this a due date. So maybe I want to be finished, Zoe said it's in August, so maybe by the end of June, I plan to be finished with the bulk of the planning. I can also add subtasks. So maybe I need to confirm the dates. I need to confirm budget. I need to find a venue, agenda, so on and so forth. So I would add all of my subtasks here. I can actually assign individual due dates to these subtasks if that makes sense, which it probably does in this scenario. So maybe I want to confirm the date first, confirm budget first. From there, I'd likely be finding a venue, things of that nature. You'll notice that I can also associate questions with this. So up until this point, Base's task manager is going to be pretty similar to any task manager you've probably ever used before. But the exception here is that we can actually integrate our task manager with other portions of Base. So you can assume that my executive has sent me this message, but I probably have some questions to really get started, specifically confirming date and budget. But I might also want to know, are there specific agenda items she has in mind? Do we want to use the same venue we used last year, or do we want to find a new venue? So I can click on questions and actually start associating new questions with this. So I could say, like, I see you have August 10th marked for off-site. Is this the final date? What is the budget for the off-site? So I can start to associate questions that I need to get answered before I can really start planning this. Do we want to use the same venue as last year? So maybe those are 3 questions that I want to get Zoe to answer to really help me get started with this particular task. You'll notice here that I can also add attachments. So as I start to confirm venues or catering menus, things of that nature, I can start to associate those confirmations and things of that nature with this particular task, so that at the end of this project, I have all of my answered questions, all of my subtasks, all of my supporting documentation attached in a single place for future reference, likely. So from here, I'm going to come out of this task, but you'll notice that all of my questions now say draft. And those are going to be draft decision stream questions. Before I actually go over there, I'll also note here that, actually, I'm going to add a tag here because I'm going to call this offsite. And so if I have, maybe I don't actually stack all of these subtasks in here. Maybe I do some individual tasks that are related to this team offsite. I can tag them all with offsite, and then I can use that tag as a smart filter. I can also sort by due date and priority as well. So that's kind of our task feature in a nutshell. We are working on the ability to assign tasks. So if you and another person support the same executive, we'll be able to assign tasks. We're also going to be adding recurring tasks soon. So those are a couple of things that we have on the roadmap for our task feature. I am going to pause there to see if we have any questions before I move through Base to follow that item. Liz, do we have any questions?
Yep, we have one question from Leslie. Is the Slack and email feature available in the free version, the inbox feature?
Now, you may have to pull up the pricing for me, Liz, because I'm actually not positive off the top of my head.
Well, it's available to all users in beta, and we have the Microsoft Teams support is coming soon. We're not quite sure yet, but if you are using Gmail, the beta version is available in the free version right now. But we are coming soon.
And we may need to clarify, are we talking about the inbox feature? Okay. Oh, thanks, Jeremy. So I wasn't sure if we were talking about the inbox feature or the task feature, but yes, so you can. Yes. So we were talking about inbox, and you in the free version of Base, you can convert, I believe it's 10 items a month into your Base inbox, and then they can flow through Base like I'm about to show you. Mm-hmm. Great question.
Thanks, guys. And if you have more questions, just keep dropping them in the comments as we move along.
Yeah. Well, perfect. So I have created that task, and now I'm ready to follow those questions, those blockers, if you will, through Base so that I can start to make some progress on this task that my executive has given to me. So I'm coming into our decision stream feature. And for those of you who are new to Base, decision stream is really meant to streamline the question and answer process. I think, at least in my experience, a lot of times executives will give their assistant a task or a project or a thing to do. And maybe you don't get all of the details you need in order to carry out that task. Similarly, you may get a task from somebody else that they're asking you to complete, and you need your executive to weigh in on that task. And again, in my experience, a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth, especially if you're asking an open-ended question. And I remember thinking in my past life, wouldn't it be great if I could ask a question and lay out some potential answers in front of my executive to make that question and answer process that much easier? The longer you work with an executive, the more you can begin to kind of read their mind or act as a second brain for them. You can start to anticipate their needs as well as their answers to questions. And really what you need is to have the executive greenlight one of those. And these are some questions that would kind of fall into that category. So I'm going to walk through what it would look like to edit these and give some answers that we could lay out in front of our executive to make this process easier. So in this particular one, do we want to use the same venue as last year? We can make this a yes, no, other question. Maybe we also want to drop in here that last year we used a meeting room at the Aloft downtown. And then we can really just be done with this one. If you'd like, again, similar to how we added a tag with a task and we used that tag as a filtering mechanism or a grouping mechanism, you could do that here as well. So if I have several questions related to the offsite, I can tag it and use that as a filter in the decision string screen. For this one, we could ask, what is the budget? And I'm just going to make stuff up because I have not planned an event like this and I don't really know what it's going to cost these days. So we'll say less than 500, probably not. Maybe we do 500 to 2,000, more than 2,000. I'll also note that these can actually act as hyperlinks. So maybe once we're farther down this path, maybe we do decide to do the offsite at a hotel downtown and we want to go out to lunch. You can actually link out to the restaurant. So if you wanted to say, these are the restaurants I'm considering for lunch, here's a link to their menu. These answers or options can also act as hyperlinks. You also have the ability to add resources. So if you needed to attach a budget spreadsheet at some point, or if you needed to attach a PDF or something of that nature to help your executive make this decision or answer this question, you have that ability as well. And then for our last question, is that the final date? Again, we could choose the yes, no, other response. We do offer several response options. So single select is going to allow your executive to choose one option. Multi-select is going to allow them to choose multiple. We offer an open response as well as yes, no, other. And I haven't been doing a good job of tagging these. But you'll notice that once I have them tagged, if I start to search for offsite, it's going to pull up those particular questions. You'll notice that my questions here are in the draft column. This means that my executive has not yet seen these questions. They're in draft and they haven't been shared yet. My awaiting response column is going to be questions that I've shared with my executive and they either haven't responded yet, which is where you see this awaiting response means they just haven't answered it yet. It could also mean that they've explicitly skipped the question. And if they have, we are going to mark it with a yellow badge that says skipped. So it's very clear to you the difference between these questions. And the primary reason we do that is because your next step may be different if you know that the executive just hasn't had a chance to respond as opposed to actually skipping the question. It may help inform your next steps. And then lastly, we have an answered column. So from here, I'm going to select the questions in the order that I want them to appear. So maybe I want to confirm the final date first, ask about venue, and then maybe budget. The order that you select the questions is the order that they're going to appear for your executive. And from here, I have the ability to just share the questions. From this share screen, you have a couple of options. I mentioned earlier that your executive does not use Base. They don't need a login to Base. They don't need to learn a new software platform. We feel pretty strongly about not requiring busy executives to do something else that is outside of their workflow. So we want to give you different ways to communicate with your executive so that you can communicate in a way that makes sense and at a time that makes sense. So I'm going to name this group of questions offsite. And then from here, I have multiple ways that I can actually share this with my executive. We have the option to text the link. We can Slack the link. As soon as our Microsoft Teams integration is finalized, you'll also have an option to send it through Teams. You'll notice with text and Slack, we actually have an option to send now or schedule for later, meaning let's say these are some urgent questions. They're not necessarily for the team offsite. They're about some meetings that your executive has this afternoon. And you actually want to schedule these for a time that is going to work for your executive. So let's say you know that they have a break coming up in 15 minutes and they're going to have attention. They're going to have the ability to actually answer your questions. So you might schedule those questions to be sent via text, Slack, or Teams because that'll grab your executive's attention quickly. For your kind of less urgent questions or non-time sensitive questions, we often see people adding those to the digest. So I'm going to pause again, Liz, to see, have we had any questions about Decision Stream before I move on to another feature?
No questions yet, but if you guys, I know there's like a couple second delay on Facebook, so we'll give you guys just a minute, excuse me, to drop those questions in. But if you do have them, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll keep answering as we move along too.
Perfect. And this actually is a good time for me to mention this as well. A lot of times, especially as assistants are kind of getting used to Base or they're new to Base, they often want to see, what is it going to look like for my executive? What is this going to look like when they actually view this? And so within Digest Builder and Decision Stream, we actually give you this static preview so that you can see, what are these going to look like, that you can kind of click through so that you can see, okay, yep, this actually is what I want to send. If you didn't, you could always click out, go back in, make your edits, and then group those again. I'm going to pop back over to see no new questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. That just means I'm doing an excellent job explaining. So you guys,
totally.
I know that's not true. So like Liz said, feel free to ask questions, but I'm going to go ahead and hop into Digest Builder so that we have plenty of time to answer questions at the end. So again, for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to assume these questions are actually non-time sensitive. They're not urgent. And so I'm going to incorporate them into my executive's digest. I could hop out of this screen and navigate to Digest Builder through this bar on the left-hand side, but I'm going to be efficient and go ahead and hop into Digest Builder from here. So for those of you who are new to new to Base, Digest Builder may not mean a lot to you. And like I mentioned at the beginning, when we started creating Base, we talked to a lot of executives, we talked to a lot of assistants, and we were really trying to help solve 4 pain points. I know when I was an assistant, I always had a lot of questions. I had a lot of updates for my executive. And I tended to hold those for our one-on-one, our weekly one-on-one, which was 30 minutes. And I often had an agenda that was far too long to actually cover in those 30 minutes. And what ended up happening was we touched on a lot of tactical stuff, but we very infrequently had an opportunity to get into strategy, goals, things that would make me more proactive and more valuable to him. And so what the Digest Builder tool aims to do is to really help you share those updates, that meeting prep, those questions that aren't time sensitive in an asynchronous way so that you and your executive can both benefit from this. And what we find is that assistants tend to tell us that their one-on-ones are a lot more productive because they're able to focus on things like strategy, goals, instead of really tactical items. So I'm going to walk through what this actually looks like. We're going to walk through a weekly, we'll do a daily digest. But there are a lot of different use cases for this particular feature. So what you're looking at here, blank digest, you're always welcome to create your digest from scratch. But I don't necessarily recommend it because, again, Base is in the business of helping you save time, be more efficient, be more proactive. And so we actually give you the ability to create digests from templates. So here I'm going to choose to create from a template. Here I can actually create a new template if I want to, or I can look at, templates created by me. If you're working in a team account, you actually have the ability to share templates across your account. So perhaps you find a particular template that gets really good responses from your executive. You might be able to share that out with your team. Or if you're just trying to establish some consistency among the executives, you could do that as well. We also give you an inspiration tab. So this is going to be a great place to look as you're getting started to see what are some common use cases for the Digest Builder. And what we tend to see is people looking at these and then creating a template that meets their specific needs and the specific information that they want to share with their executive. So I'm going to use this particular digest, and I'm actually going to make it a daily instead of a weekly preview. And so the first thing I want to do is just update the date. So tomorrow is 5/19. We can assume that that's the date I'm actually working on. We tend to see assistants kind of adding questions to Decision Stream and updating their digest builder as they go through their day. And then as one of the last things they do in the day, they start to put all of these pieces together, review the digest, make sure it looks good, and then either send it or schedule it to send. But I'll walk through that. You'll notice here that I have a pretty generic greeting. I can always come in here and say, reminder, I'll be in late tomorrow because I have a doctor's appointment. This is where I could actually pull in that decision stream. So these are those non-urgent questions about the offsite that's several months out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those in. I didn't mention this when we were in our task feature, but I know this is something that I used to do it as an assistant as well. Some of the things that were on my task list were not things that I actually was going to check off the list. They were things that my executive had to actually do, but I was keeping track to make sure they got done. So you'll notice here on this panel on the right-hand side of the screen, we can toggle between events and tasks. So perhaps I have some tasks that I would always recommend. So let's pop over real fast so you can see me do this. So maybe this is something that my executive has to do. I can tag it with Zoe's name. And then when I am in Digest Builder under tasks, I can search for a task that Zoe needs to do. If I had multiple, I could actually click and drag multiple at a time. Because I only have one in this scenario, I'm just going to go ahead and drag it over to the task section. There we go. And then it's going to be a task that Zoe can view and then actually mark complete once it's done. If I have some priorities that I want Zoe to address in that particular day, I could include them here as well. So perhaps we have, priority 1, priority 2. Maybe these are emails that they need to address. Maybe these are just things that they want to take a look at. Maybe you're linking out. You'll notice here when I actually click into this text box, you have a normal formatting toolbar that you're probably fairly familiar with. You can also hyperlink things if you'd like. From this little menu, you can add anything you want on the fly. So maybe you have an attachment. Maybe you have an image that you want to throw in here. We also offer collapsible sections, all sorts of things. So we really do make this tool really flexible to meet your specific needs. I can also pull in calendar events. So I'm going to pull in calendar events for tomorrow. And my goal here is to really add context and information that is going to help Zoe's day go smoothly and make sure that she has everything she needs in order for these meetings to go well. I've got my meetings set up so that they pull in start and end time. You have complete control. If you go into workspace settings, under digest, we're going to allow you to decide, do you want to show end time or not? Do you want to show attendees and location by default? So you have the ability to tune this information, and you can actually tune each workspace to meet that specific executive's needs. You'll notice I also have my calendar events the details pulling in automatically, and they're nesting under the calendar event so that the digest isn't crazy long and my executive can click into those details, as they are preparing for that particular meeting. So we can imagine that I've kind of been working on my digest throughout the day, and I'm starting to pull it all together. I've pulled in my decision stream. I've augmented all of my calendar events with additional notes for my executive, and I'm ready to send. I'm going to pop over to the questions before I actually send it. Just make sure.
Yeah, we have a couple.
Yeah.
From YouTube. I'll pop them up on the screen here so those on Facebook can see too. Jess would like to know, will it be possible in the future to add tasks in Decision Stream as we think of them, looking at the reoccurring meeting template in particular?
So I might need, will it be possible? Oh, yes. So great question, Jess. You actually can do that already. So let's say I'm in this particular digest. I've pulled over one task, but let's say I actually think of another one. You can actually click into the menu and choose new task, and I can type my task here. So maybe they need to respond to email from Liz, marked high priority. This will actually not only add it to the digest, it actually adds it to my task list. So here it is. Does that answer the question, Jess? Let us know. But I based on what you're asking, I think you can already do that. So again, all I did in there was I used the little floating plus sign and I chose new task. And so it not only added the task to my digest, but it actually created a task on my task list as well. Awesome. Okay, so it looks like that did answer your question. Okay, and then did we have any other questions?
Not in the chat. Nope.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will go ahead and move forward, but like we've said, just drop the questions in and we'll make sure that we're pausing pretty frequently to answer those questions. So again, I've kind of looked this over. I think I'm ready to send it. I'll actually mention while we're here, if you ever want to access your digest history, you click on that little button and you can see all the digest from the past. And we recently added these undo redo buttons because people requested it. So I mentioned that because we're really interested in knowing what you guys think about the tool. So as you get started, we want to know, are there things that would make your life easier? Are there things that you think would be helpful? And if there are, let us know, because we're totally happy to consider all of those things. We also had people asking us to indent at one point. So you'll notice these little indentation sections. So share your ideas, share your thoughts, because our team loves to hear from our users. Okay, so we have our digest, we're ready to send. Similar to what you saw in Decision Stream, we're going to give you that static preview of what this is going to look like for your executive. I'll mention this too. Our outputs, especially our digests and our decision streams, are incredibly mobile friendly because we know that so many executives are busy and they're often doing a lot of business from their iPad, their cell phone. So this is going to show you what this looked like if they were to view it on a computer or if they were to view it from a mobile device. Again, we know that a lot of business is happening on mobile devices these days. We're also going to give you multiple ways to share this. So Jess, to your point, or maybe it's a recurring meeting summary and you actually want to send it via email. You can send it to as many people as you want. Something that I've seen people do is actually do the meeting summary template, and they're actually including a section of action items, and they're using tasks to include those action items, and then they're just prefacing it like, okay, Mallory, you're responsible for these items. Jeremy, you're responsible for these items. Liz, you're responsible for these items. It's being communicated via a digest to as many people as you want. And then as those people actually mark those tasks complete, you're notified. So you know that those are done and you can check them off your list. But maybe you're not doing it that way. Maybe you're actually sending a daily digest, which is what I'm doing. We have the ability, again, to send via Slack, to send via text. We will soon be adding that Microsoft Teams option. And the nice thing about that is you actually, again, have that ability to schedule for later. So I believe Jeremy's still on the line with us. Jeremy is an early bird. And so he likes to have his digest in his inbox at 5 a.m. when he's really getting up and getting ready for his day. So his assistant has the ability to schedule it for tomorrow at 5 a.m., if that makes sense. If that's always when he wants his, you can always choose to remember this time so that you're not having to search for 5 a.m. every single time. But again, you have the ability to schedule with email, text, Slack, and soon Teams. But if you're not using one of those options, you can always copy the link and drop it into Voxer or GChat or WhatsApp or any other communication platform that you choose to use. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to copy the link so you can see it. And Liz, I'm going to let me know if this causes any problems. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can share my whole browser so we can see what the executive experience looks like. But let me go back into, just let me know if it causes problems for us.
I will be watching. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So now y'all should be seeing my whole screen.
Not yet. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So, okay, perfect. So here like I said, I'm going to copy the link so you can see what this looks like for the executive. And what they get is, I should go back here. So they see, if you were to send this via email, for example, they would see an email that says, hey, take a look at this in your digest or in your browser because it's going to be so much more dynamic and allow you to do so much more. So they would open in browser. Here's what it's going to look like for them. And from here, they have an opportunity to have a really interactive experience for you. A lot of the things that I'm showing you right now are part of our Digest Builder 2.0. And a lot of these features came because our users specifically asked for them. They said, Digest Builder is great, but I'd love to have a back and forth conversation with my executive. And our previous version was a lot more one directional. But this actually allows you to interact with your executive. So let's say the executive does these two things. They mark them completed, and you'll notice on your end, you get notifications that the executive has completed the tasks. Let's say they have some questions. So maybe they're actually not going to go to bar tomorrow. So you could say, they could actually comment, not going to bar tomorrow, planning to meet Liz for coffee in you adjust my calendar and send a coffee invite. Your executive has the ability to actually interact with you. So they can click on individual items within their digest and send you messages. When the executive sends a message, we're going to, again, notify you that they've added a comment. And again, back in the assistant version, you can toggle between edit mode and comment mode. So in comment mode, you can actually see the executive's comment. And from here, you could either respond to the comment or we give you some emojis. So if you wanted to give a thumbs up saying, yep, I'll take care of that, or even a check mark indicating, yeah, that's complete. We also give you control over whether or not your executive is being notified. So maybe you want to send a notification or you want to send a message back saying, yep, taken care of. This notification would not alert Zoe that there was a message, but if Zoe were to refresh her digest, it's always going to show, oh, I lied. It didn't even require me to do that. I actually didn't know that, so way to go, team. So those comments are going to, it looks like, update real time. The other option is I could actually tag Zoe. So I'm going to use my email address here. But if I tag an email address, it will actually send Zoe an email letting her know that there has been a comment on the digest. So I know I used to get really frustrated when I used to use Trello with my executive, and it would notify him, it would ping him every time I left a comment. And sometimes the comments were just for me. It was more informational. So I didn't forget something, but he would be pinged. And so we actually give you control over whether or not we're pinging your executive. So like I said, a really interactive experience with your executive so that they can see kind of, they can ask questions, you can answer back. And all of that context is stored right here in Base in that digest. Liz, any questions on any of that before I move forward?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. So that really is Digest Builder 2.0, and we've followed, I lied, I haven't shown you Decision Stream yet. So I also can, from my Executives Digest, look at Decision Stream. So Decision Stream is, again, going to give my executive the question, some very easy answers, and then we, again, give you that additional context box so your executive you and your executive can bidirectionally communicate. So let's say, is August 10th the final date? Yep. We could also do the 11th, but we have team members coming into town, so it needs to be one of those dates. So we click continue. Do we want to use the same venue as last year? Yep. Or something close by. And then let's say Zoe's feeling super generous and she's going to let us spend as much money as we want. From here, Zoe's done. So the executive experience is just that easy with Decision Stream. Again, on the Base side, you're going to get notifications that in a moment, you'll get a notification that those questions have been answered. On my home page, I'm also going to see on the activity panel that my digest has been viewed, my Decision Stream has been viewed, and the questions have been answered. You'll also receive an email in a couple of minutes because maybe you're not in Base when your executive answers those questions. So we're going to proactively tell you that the questions have been answered. And then lastly, within Decision Stream, if these weren't actually coming from the task, we have the ability to turn answered questions into tasks. So there's a lot of connections between all of the features within Base. Any questions, Liz, before I move into Dossier, which is the last feature we're going to talk about today? Oh, I can't hear you, Liz. I think you might be.
Sorry, still muted. About when our Teams integration will be available. We're still working on that, and we'll let our entire community know when that's ready. And if you do have questions as we're walking through this final part of the demo, keep dropping them in the comments for us.
Perfect. So the last feature I'm going to talk about today is Dossier. And Dossier is really a great place to save all of your executive preferences. I know when I was an assistant, I had some information on Post-it notes on my monitor. I had some written down in my handy dandy notebook. I had some things saved in Google Docs and Trello and all sorts of other places. And I never worried about whether I could find something. It was just a matter of how much time I would waste looking for something. And so Dossier allows you to save all of that information in kind of a one-stop shop, single source of truth way. So I have all of my executives, contact details. I have all of their scheduling preferences. I can store their out of office dates. If they use specific naming conventions or color coding, I can store that information in here. And you're probably thinking, Mallory, this is information like I already know because I do this every day. And you're right. That's true. The longer you work with an executive, the more some of this information becomes ingrained in your brain. But what do you do when you're out of the office for a week? Dossier is portable. So let's say you work with several other assistants and somebody's covering from you while you're on vacation. You would have the ability to share this workspace and all of the contents of the workspace with that person for the time period that they're covering for you. And they'd have access to naming conventions, color coding, who particular people are, how long meetings typically last. So it's a great tool for when you're going to be out of the office. What if you get promoted and somebody else starts to support your executive in your behalf? They backfill you. This is, again, portable. So it would help that transition go so much smoother. So there are a lot of scenarios where even in a situation where you've been supporting your executive for a long period of time, where Dossier becomes incredibly beneficial. I'm also going to pause and talk about contacts and custom, because I think these are some of the coolest features. And people a lot of times say like, oh, I don't know if I'd use Dossier. And then I show them this and they're like, oh yeah, I'd use that. And so contacts are not meant to serve as your executive CRM, but these are places, this is a place where you can keep kind of small details, nuanced information, contextual information that's going to help you support your executives. So maybe you're letting them know like, hey, it looks like Colleen's birthday is coming up soon. Would you like me to go ahead and purchase her a gift certificate to the obstinate daughter so she and Josh can go have a nice dinner? So it's a place for you to keep that information that's maybe really personal or nuanced that you can serve up to your executive proactively to really help them win. And then custom is really anything else. So things that I often see people saving are things like lunch orders. What are they, when my executive says, can you order me my usual from Midtown Deli? I have it. Again, maybe you know this, but does that person that covers for you while you're on vacation know this? I also used to keep track of information on my executive travel. So I always knew what are the hotels that he likes, what restaurants does he like for specific things, how does he like to get around in this particular city, because that may be different than New York, for example, or LA, for example. So it's a really great place to store all sorts of information that you will maybe or maybe not need to look back to in the future. So that's, like I said, that's Dossier. It can also be a great tool. Like if you're getting to know your executive, this can really act as kind of a getting to know you agenda to understand, where do you like to sit on a plane? What is the most preferred, like does connections trump departure time, things of that nature. So you can really start to use this as an agenda to get to know your executive's preferences.
We have a couple questions. I know we just have a few minutes left. Jess on YouTube would like to know, and I think I'm understanding this right, in naming conventions, does blah allow Base to sub in whatever name for analytics for one-on-one meetings?
Say that again. I'm just going to pop over and look at the question.
I think, let's see here. In naming conventions, does whatever you name it allow Base to sub in whatever name for analytics for one-on-one meetings?
So I'm not sure. I'll answer this two ways, Jess. And if I'm still not getting at what you're asking, let me know. So naming conventions
for color coding too. I don't know if that helps with more context.
Okay. So really right now, the naming conventions and color coding in Dossier are really for informational purposes. But I think where you're going with that is, I think you're asking more for like AI almost. And so right now it's for informational purposes. And this piece is helpful with our Analyze tool, because if you are using naming conventions, it's going to help bubble up these top event terms a lot more frequently than if you're just kind of willy-nilly naming things. But it's not going to recognize that and like, for example, in our new tool, Stooler, which we have in development now, it's not going to like see the connection and say, oh, this is a one-on-one. So it's not going to like name it that. But I kind of see where you're going with that with color coding too. And that's kind of future state of Base, where we want to really start to tie executive preferences into how the system actually operates. I don't know if I answered the question, but let us know. But I think the answer is just that it's really for informational purposes right now. Any other questions, Liz?
None that I see in the chat, but yeah, Jess, let us know if that didn't answer your question or not. Or if you have, I know we're only, we have about a minute left, but if you do have any other questions, we'd be happy to chat with you offline too. So let us know.
Yeah,
I did drop, guys, the registration link for our OKR Summit, Objectives and Key Results on June 9th. I would highly encourage you guys to sign up for that. It is going to be a hyper-focused summit. Usually we have like 7 to 9 sessions. This is going to be 4 sessions. So less time out of your day, but they're going to be really, really focused on how you ingrain yourself within an existing OKR process within your company, how you launch it, or just in general, how you align yourself to what's most important to your executive. So whether you're at any of those stages, this will really be beneficial for you. And I dropped that link in the chat for you guys. And of course, we'll be doing giveaways and all of that fun stuff as well that comes with a summit. So make sure you check that out. And if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach out to me at liz@basehq.com or Mallory@basehq.com, and we'll be more than happy to connect you with the right resource, walk you through anything, and of course our YouTube channel. Most of you, I think almost all of you now are watching on YouTube. We save all of these videos. They're available to you 24/7. Mallory and the rest of the customer success team is always uploading new videos, so you guys have those resources. So don't forget to hit subscribe. I feel like one of those like YouTube influencers. Hit the subscribe button below. But that's the best way to get notified. Leslie just said she's been using Base for a while and still.
Hey, Leslie.
Hey. Oh, I love it. Great. Thank you so much for joining, Leslie. And I know we're about a minute over, so we'll let you guys go. But thank you so much for joining. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.